Mr. Obama's not going to be able to do that the way he did it the first 2 years. That's the result of this election. So the only thing left for the government to get money is by printing it. They can't tax it, they can't borrow. That's another reason why the Federal Reserve did what it did. It's desperate. This economy isn't going to be stimulated out of crisis by the government because the crazy ideology here blocks it. The Republicans and the Democrats won't allow taxing, won't now allow borrowing anymore, so the fiscal stimulus is gone. There's just the Federal Reserve left. So everything is now going to be concentrated on money. We're going to do away with the other weapon and just focus on money. Print it, distribute it. Print more of it, distribute more of it. The risk of that becoming a flood of buying things, wow, and that would produce an inflation. Last thing for today. So worrisome is this risk of inflation that it's already having powerful effects. We don't even have an inflation yet. Just the risk coming out of the Federal Reserve being so reliant on money and getting through this crisis being so dependent on pumping up money, it's already led the people whose lives depend on making these calculations do it. And I'm going to take you through that and then I'll stop. First, everywhere around the world, people who have dollars are nervous. Why? Because if you keep printing more and more of it, and you keep dumping it into the world economy, you're creating too much of it. You're going to lead people who are accumulating it to say, I have already a lot of this, I don't want more of it, so if you're going to give me more of it, I'm going to turn around and get rid of it. I'm going to exchange it for some other currency because I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to have everything I own in the form of a dollar. There's too many of these dollars. I'm afraid as the dollars accumulate and the price of everything in dollars goes up, risk of inflation, then the value of my dollar diminishes. If the price of everything goes up, a dollar becomes less and less valuable. An inflation is a danger that an owner of dollars has to deal with. And who owns dollars in the world? I'm going to give you just two examples. One, every country in the world that produces oil is concerned about the dollar. Why? Because the world market in oil is undertaken in dollars. If Saudi Arabia has a contract to sell oil to pick something, Netherlands, the deal is made in dollars. Netherlands pays dollars to Saudi Arabia for oil. That's the international mode of payment for oil. That means every oil exporting country in the world depends on the value of the dollar. If they sell a barrel of oil for $50, their real interest is, what can I buy with the $50? If the United States is pumping too many dollars in the world, driving down the price, every seller of oil is receiving dollars that are becoming less and less valuable. So what will the oil producers do? They do what they've done the last month and a half, jack up the price of oil. But here come now the ironies. If the price of oil goes up, remember, here in the United States, everything we have depends on oil. Everything you buy in a store came there by a truck using oil. Because we don't produce in the United States hardly anything anymore, we produce it all in China, which is the furthest away you can be and still be on the planet. It means that what we now consume has to come a long way using oil. So oil is, when we bring up the price of oil, we're going to produce the very inflation that we're worried about as the logical consequence of people worried about inflation. That's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. We bring it about. Here's a second angry dollar holder. The largest holder of dollar-denominated debt, that is, the debts that are calculated in dollars, is the People's Republic of China. They own over roughly $1.5 trillion worth of America's debt in dollars. The value of those bonds that they own, the largest holder in the world of our debt as a nation, is the People's Republic of China. Well, I like to always make the same footnote, so let me do it again. The largest capitalist country in the world, the United States, is the biggest debtor country in the world. And the country it owes the most money to, because it's lending to the United States to help us out of the crisis, is the world's largest communist country. Okay? So the next time you hear someone tell you about the efficiency of capitalism, the inefficiency of socialism and communism, giggle. Because you're listening to a moron. Right? Anyway, the Chinese are angry. And that's not a good thing for them to be these days. Why are they angry? They're sitting on $1.5 trillion worth of assets, debts in dollars. If the dollar goes down, you're ripping the value of that out of their hands. Over the last year, the Chinese have unloaded $100 billion worth of their US dollar debt. They see the handwriting on the wall. They're beginning to unload their dependence on the dollar, and so is everybody else. I manage money as a sideline, since being paid as a professor of economics in the United States is not a successful road to economic security. I have for many years invested money for liberal groups, trade unions, and stuff like that. But I also have some private clients, people that I've known over my lifetime. And in the last year, I have moved their money out of the US dollar. Good thing, too. Into what? What would you guess? Swiss francs, euros, yen, and so on. The safest currencies in the world that I can find. Are they a great investment? No, but the dollar is too dangerous. That's going to have consequences, serious ones. And I'm going to end today by giving you one example of the kinds of conflicts that are emerging out of this crazy stew. If the dollar goes down, which it has been doing for a while now, because of this reliance on stimulating with more and more of these dollars that the world doesn't want so many of, the hope in Washington is, and you can see this, that if the dollar goes down, it means that American goods abroad are cheaper. Right? If the dollar goes down, you don't have to give as many euros to get a dollar. And so you give fewer euros for a dollar, you buy something that's priced in dollars, it looks cheaper to you as a European. So the dollar going down is good for American exports. It makes them cheaper abroad. And by the same token, if the dollar goes down, we have to give more dollars to get other currencies, so what we buy from abroad becomes more expensive. I'll give you a simple example. As the dollar declines relative to the euro, we have to give more and more dollars for a euro, so a 10 euro bottle of French wine costs us more because we've got to give more dollars to get those 10 euros. The wine is still 10 euros for the French producer, but that producer is going to find fewer customers in America because the price in dollars is going up. So we're all going to shift, and instead of buying French wine, we're going to rediscover the joys of California jug wine. That's good for California, and it's bad for France. The minute the Federal Reserve announced 2 weeks ago that it was going to pump more money in, and actually took this step, every major European Minister of Finance denounced the United States. Denounced the United States. Why? They said the following: you are trying to get out of the economic crisis you caused by sticking it to us, by making our goods more expensive in your country as you drive down the dollar, while your goods become cheaper now. You're helping your beaten down capitalists at the expense of ours. And you're crazy if you think we're going to let that happen. We are going to fight against you. Because this is called, and this is how the press handled it, as a currency war. A currency war. everybody's fighting to manipulate their current. Every government in our free capitalist private enterprise system, every government is manipulating its society to help its capitalists at the expense of others. Currency wars in the history of capitalism have a nasty habit of becoming trade wars and then becoming military wars as the pressure heats up and the desperation of each country to get out of the crisis. The French cannot tolerate this. Mr. Sarkozy now gets poll numbers worse than George Bush in the last months of his presidency. He's dead as a political force. So is his conservative political coalition. He has to get France out of this crisis, and the United States just made it harder for him to do that. And he's furious. And the Germans are furious. Everybody's furious. It's called a beggar my neighbor policy. It comes out of American history, European history, because this is what happened in the Great Depression. The countries started competing against one another, each country trying to push the problem over to the other one, and they ended up, all of them, worse off, because this is a recipe for disaster. The Chinese are angry, the Europeans are angry. This situation is deteriorating politically and economically. The focus on Federal Reserve, on pumping up the money supply, is an act of desperation because all the other avenues are closed off. And it is fraught with immense economic, political, and social risks. It therefore demonstrates the proposition with which I began. This is a crisis that comes out of the deepest roots of this economic system that is accumulated over all these years. It's not a quick down, quick back up. It's not short. We are now ending, in the month of November will be the final month of the third year of this crisis, and there is no end in sight. The last time we had a crisis like this, it lasted 11 years. And there is still no left movement, open and strong in this country, proposing even the most minimum left sort of responses to this crisis. As, for example, demanding that the government today do what Franklin Roosevelt did in 1934.